just a quick advance warning, I'm absolutely going to ruin the entire end of the Good Place. So if you haven't seen it, if you are listening to this podcast for some reason, I strongly suggest you pause this podcast, take a week or so, watch every single episode, and then after an appropriate period of emotional readjustment and healing, then you can come back and listen to this, because you are really missing out if you, I always say, go into it cold, because it is so wonderful just to watch it.
Hello, and welcome to God in Film, the podcast where a Christian and an atheist dive into the best that cinema has to offer and see if we can find any parallels with the gospel or any other Bible stories. I'm educator and Kantian moral imperative, Giles Goff.
And I'm librarian and not a girl, Julia Hall.
And continuing with season 8 of this lockdown project that got out of hand, we'll be looking at The Good Place, the Netflix TV show about the afterlife. We'll be looking at epistemic distance, faith versus works, and asking, what is salvation anxiety? Julia, what did you think of this show?
I really liked this show. It made me laugh. It made me cry. I didn't think a sexy cheaty calendar was going to make me sob, but it did. The first half of season 2, they almost lost me, because I was like, you had a really good premise going on. And then when it's revealed, spoilers, that it's the bad place at the end of season 1, I was a little bit like, where do you go from there? But then they just snatch it right back after like 2 or 3 episodes, and you're really in the vibe again. Season 4 was very stressful. There were a lot of low points, like how are they going to get out of this? How are they going to progress? But they do, and it all works out mostly fine in the end. So
did I introduce you to this? Is this the first time you've seen this show?
Yes, it is.
Oh, amazing. Now I think it's time for Julia's Facts.
I got a few kind of short, punchy little facts
Hit me with it.
So names and the naming of things really matters in The Good Place. So you've got your puns on your restaurants and things, but the neighborhood name 12358W is of course the Fibonacci sequence.
I love the Fibonacci sequence.
So the Fibonacci
it's my favorite bit of maths.
Is basically each number is the previous 2 numbers added together. So 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3, 2 plus 3 is 5, 3 plus 5 is 8, and so on. And the Fibonacci spiral is the classic visualization of that, but yeah, the neighborhood name is the Fibonacci sequence. So the frozen yogurt, I have never wanted to try frozen yogurt more than after having watched this show, but to Americans apparently like froyo is like the meh thing. That's why the bad place is filled with I don't know, man. But it's not actually frozen yogurt. All the froyo props are mashed potatoes.
Oh wow.
And Kristen Bell is also vegetarian, so all the shrimpies are vegetarian substitute fish. But the dipping sauces are all the same.
This is like when you find out the fish fingers and custard in Matt Smith's first episode were actually like these little sort of coconut bar things.
Are you kidding?
I'm not kidding.
That's such a... Eat fish fingers and custard, you coward. Do it. Just do it. Miss me with that. Okay. So the next one is, I think it's either season 2 or 3 when they talk about Jonathan Dancy's book and theory on moral particularism.
Right, okay.
And Michael Schur really wanted to add that material into the show, but he was finding it quite difficult to understand. So the next best thing was to ask Jonathan Dancy's son, Hugh Dancy, of Hannibal fame, to explain it when they bumped into each other at a party. Love Hugh Dancy. That was like a...
What is not to love about Hugh Dancy?
I know, and he's married to Claire Danes.
No.
Yeah, I'm like 90% certain is it Claire Danes, the nice lady who plays the star in Stardust?
I love that that's where your brain goes to. In fact, you were born after Romeo and Juliet came out, weren't you? You were a 98 baby?
Yes, so like... Oh, of course, because she's Juliet as well, isn't she?
Yeah, so for millennials, Claire Danes is always Juliet. It doesn't matter that she was in Homeland, it doesn't matter that she was out, she's always Juliet.
Love a bit of Baz Luhrmann.
Love it.
The show has got several I say several, I'm going to list two, but it's got a couple of other Easter eggs to other series that Michael Schur's worked on. So Derek, the son boyfriend of Janet, is played by Jason Mantzoukas. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I've only seen it written.
Mantzoukas, yeah.
But he seems to have a thing for olives. Lots of martini glasses filled with olives and not a lot else.
Yeah.
Mantzoukas plays a character in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, another one of Schur's shows, called Adrian Pimento. And of course, pimento is kind of olive. And then all the safes in the show, including the one that Jason is unfortunately locked into, are all from the Swanson Safe Company, which of course is a reference to Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec. Nick Offerman shows up later in the series as a sort of bit part as the wood carver who teaches
the
Han.
series. He's there in the series finale. I was just watching that again this evening. It was like, and they don't say who it is, but they don't need to. And I love it when you have those kind of cameos.
My last fact, I think is my favourite. So the final door in The Good Place, that kind of wooden, willowy sort of arch, was not made or planned by production. It was left behind at the venue where they were filming after a wedding party.
Love it.
Which is like,
brilliant.
I don't know, there's something just correct about it.
I love that.
And that's it. That's all my facts. Very short and sweet today.
I really do appreciate that. Thank you very much, Julia.
You're welcome.
So just a quick reminder, if you would like us to stay on the air and ad-free, you can go to www.patreon.com/The God in Film Podcast and sign up to our Bishop Waller Bridge tier, where you can check out our longest ever episode on the life and work of one Bruce Springsteen. Here's a clip.
Every night on this current world tour, he's been making political statements.
Yeah.
And he does see himself as somebody who stands up for the working man. Very famously, many years ago in the Thatcher era, he did a concert in Sunderland and he donated thousands of dollars to the miners' cause. So he sees himself as somebody who sings about the ordinary man. If you listen to the lyrics of Born in the USA, it's not an anti-war song. No. It is a song that says, I serve my country, but my country has failed me.
Yeah.
My country has let me down. So he sees himself as standing up for the ordinary Joe in the street. So I think the appeal is, it's just great rock and roll music. It's just great pop music.
Plus, you can hear additional interviews, special bonus episodes like our God in You 2 and God in Gaming episodes. And if you're a bit strapped for cash and want to support us without spending money, then leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Podbean, the occasional toilet door, or wherever you're listening to this. It makes a big difference in pointing people towards the show. Now, for this bit, we've not got a guest distinctly on our own, but we do have a guest co-host who is going to take us through Finding Their Faith in the Film.
Ba-ba.
I will let her introduce herself.
Hi, I am RS teacher and fire squid in a skin suit, Natalie Minaker.
That's
Hello.
how I always think of you.
Hello.
Hi, Nat. Nat's here,
That's how my
everybody.
students think of me too. Yeah.
Now, full disclosure, Natalie has been campaigning for us to do The Good Place on this show for literal years. And I gave up and gave in to her, mainly because I just could not think of a decent finale for this season. And I felt The Good Place felt right. It felt a good place to end the season on.
Oh, I see what you did there.
See what I did there?
Yes.
Now, I've got a few things I'm going to talk about on this one, but Natalie, my main problem would be that you were only going to talk about philosophy and all those interesting concepts, which, don't get me wrong, are great, but the whole thing of this show is about finding biblical parallels with the gospel and any other Bible stories. So I am very much in your hands here.
Yeah, so there's so many other podcasts that out there that have talked so much about like the ethics and the philosophy, and I feel like that's done. So I'd like to kind of jump into a bit of the theology. I mean, can I just kind of say why I wanted to do this particular thing is I am a grade A Good Place super fan. I have seen the show all the way through at least 5 or 6 times. I've got my kids into watching it now.
That's like 1.6 Beremies of times that you've watched it now.
Yes, exactly. What I love, it's like Julia was saying, it's so crammed full of detail, all those little sight gags and stuff. Every time I watch it, I spot something new, like another little in-joke. The foreshadowing, it's like, oh, it's absolutely brilliant. But also I love that it doesn't outstay its welcome. It's 4 seasons, absolutely perfect, no filler, and it ends with it just sticks the landing. Like every single character gets a resolution to their character arc, and like I just am left all warm and fuzzy at the end of it. I just think this show is just beautiful. So, the first bit of mainly theology, really, that I want to talk to about The Good Place.
Wait, what is that?
Oh,
is that
Oh my
like
God.
flying shrimp going through the air?
Oh my God! It's
Oh my gosh! Wait, no, it's the podcast lady her indoors.
Hello, it's me.
Hey, it's Claire.
Flying shrimp, really?
Flying shrimp from the first episode of The Good Place.
I'd have said more sexy giraffe.
Thank you.
Sexy
Yes,
giraffe.
that is
Yeah.
more like it.
That is how I
Yeah.
always think of you.
Hello, it's the Mrs. Goff.
Yeah.
That just turns up whenever she feels like it. Hi.
Okay, so I am outnumbered by women, which is exactly how I like it, but we've evened the score of atheists and Christians again, so...
Oh, it's
There we go.
2v2.
Okay, Nat, tell us what you want to tell us.
Awesome. So so while The Good Place really goes out of its way to do this like version of the afterlife that's completely non-denominational, wholly inclusive, no religion is shown as being the right one. I love that line.
Christianity got it right by about 5%, I think was what they said.
The Jews got 5%. Everyone got about 5%.
I'm going to join the Doug Fawcett cult. That's my religion now.
Yes.
He got like, what, 90%, right?
Love that
I will
guy.
follow
Love
him.
that guy. I think you have to be Canadian and take a bunch of mushrooms. Like that's how it works. There are some parallels with Christian ideas that I did spot when I was watching. So this is more sort of early Christian theology, some of these early church founders, but obviously supported by biblical passages as well. So by the very end of The Good Place, then, the idea, that there's this good place and bad place and a point system, that entire afterlife system's been completely overhauled. So instead of like where you get one life and you get points and you're judged and you're permanently sent to the good or the bad place, depending on how you did in life, the new system essentially becomes like, I guess, like a training program. So everyone's tested, given a chance to grow, improve, become better versions of themselves. And if you fail, no problem. You reset, you try again, and everyone in the afterlife gets to do this as many times as they need until they genuinely succeed at becoming a good person, and then they get to go into the good place where they can enjoy this eternal happiness, or at least eternal for as long as they want it. So when this, for me, this seemed like personally a really fair system. Like, if there is an afterlife, I really hope it's this one. I love it. Much more fairer than I think like the one shot and you're done system. But when I watched it, I couldn't help but like it brought to mind a very specific theodicy that I teach as part of GCSE and A-level. So I'm going to throw this out to the guys here. Do you know what a theodicy is?
Yes.
No.
I know the word and I can't remember what it means.
It's something to do with God, right? Because it has Theo, and I know that much. It's the Idiocy bit that I'm drawing a blank on.
I'd be giving you house points if you're my student. Giles, you said yes.
Yes. We've done a lot of episodes, you guys. I can't be expected to remember everything we've got. Think of these podcast episodes as like a pensieve, okay? I learn a thing, I get really deep into a thing, I edit it to within an inch of its life, put it into the world. There's 3 people that listen to it. You're in the room now, and then I kind of forget about it. So I don't think I'm going to be able to do a good job of explaining it as you would, Natalie. So I will defer to you on this one.
Okay, I thought you would go for your usual thing of like, well, of course I know what it is, but maybe you could explain it for everyone else. An excellent tactic. So basically, a theodicy it literally means, I think, like justification of God. It's an attempt to explain the problem of evil. So how can a good, all-powerful God and evil and suffering exist without contradicting each other. So if basically, if God is omnipotent, he is able to prevent suffering, and if he's omnibenevolent, he would want to prevent it, but clearly suffering exists. So come on, God, what's going on here? How do we square this circle? Right? I know, come on. One way you can do it is you take away God's omnipotence, so he wants to help us but he can't, or you take away his omnibenevolence, so he could help us, he just doesn't want to. People, I'm assuming you guys would not be happy with that. Worshipping a weak God or an evil God, probably not something you'd be interested in.
I think you can be omnibenevolent without being evil. Like, I think I've said this before, like, if I was to think that God exists, I don't think he'd be benevolent, but I don't think he's doing anything out of being evil. It's more like a neutral state. Does that make sense? I mean,
that's an interesting one. So like a neutral God, so he does he feels nothing towards us? Like he doesn't love us?
I think this is purely from an atheistic standpoint, and again, there's especially right now. Again, I don't know if it's because I looked at the news today that I really feel this, but there is a lot of suffering and badness going on that I personally find it difficult to think that there could be a way to end it and it's not happening. But I don't think it's from a more like, if God existed, he would be like such a far removed as a being. Like consider how we are to like rodents, for example, or like insects at that kind of level.
So I think Julia has just summed up about 2,000 years worth of Christian thought on this.
Yeah.
I'm speaking to people who are vastly more educated on this subject than me. This is me completely going off of vibes. But like, I might accidentally step on an ant. I wouldn't feel bad about it, but I didn't do it on purpose. Is that make a little bit more sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's like, it's not that he would actively want the suffering to happen, but sometimes things are on such a small scale that you're not with it as much.
So that in a way would kind of say that God is not omniscient, like there are things that he's not aware of.
That could go into it.
I mean, it could solve the problem of suffering, but again, it's probably not in line with what we call the God of classical theism, like this omni-God. But what's interesting, what you've just said there, some of my students have started listening to these podcasts, which is quite interesting because they started with the Oppenheimer episode, which none of them had actually watched the film, and they listened to an hour and a half. Just, I don't know why. Apparently they have a WhatsApp group and listen to episodes that I'm in and talk about it. So
that's adorable.
Guys, if you are listening, I'm about to use a phrase that I use a lot in class, which is human minds, we just cannot comprehend the mind of God. And there's a little shorthand I use in class for that, which my class are currently shouting out because they're listening along, is stupid human meat brain. And it's a little short. It's a Miss Minaker phrase. I have told them you cannot use it in your answers. It occasionally turns up in mock exams. I'm like, guys, no, not a recognised theological term. But yeah, this idea that, you know, if God does exist, he's so far beyond us, we can't understand him. So it's like our stupid human meat brains. Anyway, so yeah, no, that's, I mean, well, let me run through the theodicy, and then maybe that might help you understand like why an all-loving, all-powerful God might allow suffering. So yeah, I mean, this is not an issue that is unique just to Christianity. Like any religion that has an omni-God, it has to deal with this. And I think, obviously for me as an atheist, my answer to the question, if there's a God, then why do suffering and evil exist, has a really straightforward answer, which is there is no God and the world is basically a bit crap. Like, that's how I resolve that issue. It's not a problem for me. But if you are a person of faith and you believe in God, I think at some point you have to grapple with that question, even if ultimately your answer is like, I don't know why there's suffering, but I just trust that God knows why there is, you know. But I feel like you have to at some point have that conversation with yourself.
Yeah, I think this is like every Thursday for me.
Oh, look, it's Thursday. Yeah. Pencil in existential crisis.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So within Christianity, there's quite a few theodicies that have been presented over the years. So like, why would God allow suffering? And one of the first was from this guy called St Irenaeus. Hands up, who's heard of St Irenaeus? Oh, Claire's got a hand up. Claire, what do you know about St Irenaeus?
I know his name, and I have heard of him before. I cannot remember any more than that. I'm sorry, I read a lot of stuff.
That is absolutely fine. So yeah, he's a early Christian theologian, born. We're talking early. He's like born 130 CE. So within spitting distance of actual biblical times.
That's like before Constantine, so he gets into the game really early.
It's before Augustine as well, and yet in the textbooks, Augustine always seems to come first, which annoys a lot of RS teachers. Okay. So he was born in what's modern-day Turkey. He became Bishop of Lyon in what is now France. He's most famous for writing this book Against Heresies, where he's basically like going up to the Gnostic Christians and going, no, stop it.
Done, those Gnostics.
Yeah. So he was like, he thought they were promoting heretical ideas, and he was really important in like the very early days for formalizing early Christian belief, like when all the early Christian groups were still fighting about, well, what is canon, what isn't, what books are authentic, which ones aren't. And, I could just imagine him like being there, like at a council, rolling his sleeves up and going, right, come in here, guys, where them Gnostics at. But anyway, so he developed this really influential theodicy that tries to explain.
I think there's a whole story about how he punched a Gnostic.
Oh my God, I thought I made that up.
No, I'm sure there's loads. I don't know if it's actually true, but I think there's loads of artwork depicting that happen. From the Middle Ages and stuff, I think. Yeah.
Oh my God, I literally just was making a daft joke. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Giles is furiously Googling to see if that's true.
Yeah, because I've just been editing a book where I think it has like a medieval woodcut image of him punching a knight in the face.
In between like the knights fighting snails.
Oh no, sorry, it's St Nicholas. It's St Nicholas, forgive me.
Did St Nicholas punch Arius at the Council of Nicaea?
I love that. Okay, well, at least someone's getting punched.
Yeah, somebody's throwing hands.
Anyway, St Irenaeus then. So he had this theodicy that tries to explain why God would allow suffering. So Augustine, who actually came later, his idea was basically we were born perfect and then Adam and Eve screwed everything up and brought sin into the world. So we've like fallen from perfection. Irenaeus takes a very different view. He's saying no, that we are born imperfect and prone to making bad decisions and stuff. And it's not a bug, it's a feature. Like God has done this deliberately. So he drew his theodicy from the Bible. Now, this is where, I don't know, I feel like he might just be playing with words a bit here. So Genesis 1:26, then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness. Now, personally, I would read that as just repetition for emphasis. But Irenaeus was like, no, hang on. Image and likeness, two different words. Those are two different things. So he's arguing that the images of God is what we're born into. Our humanity, our reason, the stuff that makes us human. Like we are the image of God, but not a perfect copy. I guess like maybe like a black and white photocopy.
Right.
But the likeness is what we will grow towards. So we are born as like an image of God and we grow towards his likeness. And this likeness is the finished product, this like perfect moral and spiritual maturity. So becoming like God. So let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness. For Irenaeus, those are two different things, and you have a journey from the image to the likeness. So for Irenaeus, Adam and Eve weren't created perfect and then ruined it. They were created like children at the start of a journey and would grow towards God's likeness over time. And so that's where suffering and free will come into it, because to become more like God requires choice and struggle. It requires failure. You're not born into perfection. You're supposed to work it out, learn as you go. And according to Irenaeus, suffering and challenges aren't just random. They are the things that shape us. Literally, it's the spiritual equivalent of a gym. No pain, no gain. You need suffering, because if there was no suffering in the world, how on earth would you show charity if there were people who didn't need it? How would you show empathy if no one was ever in need of empathy? If everything was fine and perfect, you could not show virtue. The idea of suffering bringing reward can also be found elsewhere in the Bible. I made sure to put in lots of Bible references to keep Giles happy. So Romans chapter 5 verses 3-4. We also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. So it's this message that when we suffer, God has a reason for that. God is doing it to make us stronger. James,
there's
chapter
quite a lot of imagery about. There's quite a lot of imagery about like refining fire in the Bible, isn't there? How fire purifies and.
And then you got James chapter 1, 2-4. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. So there seems, I'm bringing receipts.
Got the screenshots.
God wants us to suffer. So when we suffer, we should say, thanks God for the opportunity for personal growth and development, which I'm sure we all do. Every time we suffer. So this is why Irenaeus comes to mind when I watch The Good Place. So his idea is suffering and challenges aren't just side effects of life. They are the things that help us grow. The characters in the show, they face trial after trial, and it's the struggle that slowly shapes them into better people. So having to do good things, having to help people, having to deal with all of these terrible things that they've had to deal with. Like all the four characters are basically shaped by their experiences and their upbringing, like particularly Eleanor and Jason, actually Tahani as well, who had like really rubbish parents and they had to overcome that. So the afterlife system the show ends up with is basically an extension of that. Everyone gets a chance to keep working on themselves, to learn through mistakes and setbacks until they've grown closer and closer towards this moral perfection. They're being judged once and for all. They're being formed over time into the people who do belong in the good place.
Where it ends, isn't it basically that they effectively invent purgatory?
Kind of,
I was thinking it kind of felt like purgatory.
You start off with a good place and a bad place, and there is this like little medium place over there, and then it basically becomes purgatory with textbooks.
Yeah.
I feel like
it's like a less sucky purgatory. Like there's a bit less suffering going on.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the Catholic idea of purgatory, it's less like a college course and more like a prison sentence. Like there's no improvement. You're just there to be scourged of your sins.
Yeah, I get that. I appreciate it's not a one-to-one comparison, but the idea of the existence of three places rather than just two. And,
it's sort of being refined until you can get into heaven kind of thing, yeah.
But in the end, there's only two places because the bad place doesn't exist anymore. Like no one's in the bad place. You go through the process in the afterlife and then you just go to the good place.
Yeah, because if it takes you like 7,000 Jeremy Beremies, then that's how long it takes. Like if it takes you for eternity, like Brent's still there.
Yes, I love the idea.
Michael
He's just gonna stay there.
Still there. He's not left.
No, but you don't understand. That. What if saying to her that if she smiled, it would genuinely make her face prettier? Surely I'm doing her a favour if I say that. I've been reading a book called Better Ways to Read the Bible by Zach Lambert, and he talks on a similar process about conceptions of hell and the way we're taught a lot about hell, and it just kind of remains this vague threat that kind of hangs over us, but it's exceptionally light on details. You just kind of go, okay, well, that's a place I don't want to be. And Zach Lambert had the idea that the gates of heaven are always open. I cannot find the Bible reference for that right now, but it's always open to you if you ever decide you want to come in. And that's a idea that I'd heard echoed in the Mid-Faith Crisis podcast as well. So it does seem to be that traditional views of hell, like it is a place where you just burn eternally forever, or you're in absolute eternal agony and suffering.
Butthole spiders.
Butthole spiders, thank you.
Penis flatteners. That was another one.
That does seem to be a theory or a belief that is being questioned and kicked around a bit. And
I think sometimes the concept of eternal conscious torment is presented as the only view that there is among Christians, and that's just not really true. There are other beliefs about the afterlife and other theories. So it's worth.
I mean, the lines that Jesus actually said about sort of being thrown into the fire and outer darkness, none of those sounded fun.
No. But again, if you think about the way that fire is often used in the Bible, it is a refining process. Do we know that is necessarily going to be eternal?
Right. Okay. Yeah. The way I try to think of this in these terms is this is going to sound daft. I try and picture the Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take the concept of death out of the equation, right, and the Titanic is going down, and there's people in the water, and you've got Johan Griffith coming in on the
love Johan Griffith.
Well, who doesn't love Johan Griffith? On the lifeboat, is there anyone alive out there? I want you to imagine the idea that accepting Jesus is getting into the lifeboat.
Mm-hmm.
That is salvation, that sense of being able to be freed from the torment and all the rest of it. And if you don't have the concept of death and you're always going to be alive, then the idea of not getting into the lifeboat is that you have to swim to New York from somewhere in the mid-Atlantic. And that's still not a great option. I pictured it as like you end up in the same place, but there is one incredibly straightforward and easy way to get there, and there's one incredibly roundabout and long
I think
and
I
miserable
see what
way
you're
of getting
saying.
there.
I think I see what you're saying. Yeah, I'm not sure I buy that, but okay.
I'm not entirely sure I buy it either. I'm not saying I'm not saying that it is something that I ascribe to, but it's the best metaphor I could think of at this time.
See, I feel like you're going to love where I'm going next, because have you ever heard of John Hick?
I know John Wick, but I don't know John Hick.
No,
I'm sorry.
not him. As far as I'm aware, no one killed John Hick's dog and sent him on a killing spree. I could be wrong, but it doesn't feel on brand for him. So John Hick, like if we skip forward like 2 millennia after Irenaeus, so we have this British philosopher born in 1922 called John Hick. He spent much of his career just teaching in the UK and US. He actually converted to evangelical Christianity after initially trying to pursue a career in law. So bit of a plot twist in his life. So he was really inspired by this Irenaean theodicy, but he took it a little bit further and added. He didn't say Irenaeus was wrong. He just kind of refined it and added some bits. He came up with this idea of soul making. So he said Irenaeus's idea was basically your soul is being made, so it's soul making, but he added into it the concept of universal salvation. So kind of similar to what we were saying, like it's not like the gates of heaven are just shut if you fail the test and that's it, eternal damnation. He said, if the whole point of life is to achieve spiritual perfection, then in his view, everybody will get there in the end. And his argument here then, he said, if God is truly all-loving, then it wouldn't make sense for God to create a system where some people are lost forever. Eternal damnation, in Hick's words, would mean that evil ultimately then has the last word, and that would then make God either not powerful enough to overcome it or not loving enough to want to. Like, how could God be this all-powerful, all-loving person when there are people in hell for eternity? Like, does God not love them? Is God not powerful enough for them? So this did not sit with Hick, with the God that he knew and the God that he had a relationship with. So instead he said that life is an ongoing process of soul making. We're given time and opportunities to grow, but the difference is Hick said, well, if we don't manage that in this lifetime, if we don't achieve spiritual perfection, which honestly, which of us is, then that process continues after death. So when we die, that process continues and continues, sounding a little bit familiar, sounding a bit like The Good Place. Yeah. So however many tries it takes, every person will eventually be the kind of person who can be in that perfect relationship with God. Importantly, Hick still talks about free will. So like what you were saying, that you can choose to swim to New York or you can choose to get on the lifeboat. It's kind of similar here. Like you still have free will. Hick isn't arguing that everybody is forced into heaven. Instead, God is just infinitely patient and gives us endless chances until we finally get there. At some point, we're going to stop treading water and just get in the damn lifeboat. So this idea of universal salvation is one that has slightly less biblical support, but obviously Hick wasn't just pulling these ideas from nowhere. He quotes 1 Timothy 2 verses 3-4 when he says, this is good and pleases God our Saviour, who wants all people to be saved and come to a knowledge of the truth. So I mean that could
word
imply
all comes out, and it's really compelling, actually. I'm looking in my book here for
as someone
the thing.
who plays a lot of Magic the Gathering, little words like that genuinely are extremely important.
Yes. All players must. Oh, hate that one. But yeah, so that seems to imply God does want everyone to be saved, and that is very on brand with the omnibenevolence. Slightly more controversially, I feel like he did use Colossians 1:19-20 to support the argument. Now, his argument that God's salvation is available to all people regardless of faith. So he's kind of like a bit of an inclusivist, a bit of a pluralist. So rather than Christianity, you're in the lifeboat, if you're not Christian everyone else drowns, he argued that all faiths are valid paths, and he uses for that argument Colossians 1:19-20. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or in heaven. So it's that all doing a lot of heavy lifting there. But if Hick's right, then it implies that all people, even those of non-Christian faith, can receive salvation. The idea is, though, that Jesus still is the way to God, but if you don't accept Jesus in this life, you still have the whole of infinity of time after death to get there in your own time. So obviously, the parallels between Hick's universal salvation, this idea that spiritual growth continues after death, basically is the afterlife in the good place. I don't think this was intentional, but
I'm going to interrupt there because I'm going to find something that's kind of echoed it. I'm going to read a section from this book, as a Better Ways to Read the Bible by Zach Lambert. By the time this book comes out, you can read my review of it. The biblical authors are not univocal in their descriptions of hell. However, there is a compelling picture of what happens to those in hell when Jesus returns to complete his mission of making all things new in something called the new heaven and the new earth. Listen to John's description. I did not see a temple in the city because the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and the Lamb is its lamp. The nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their splendour to it. On no day will its gates ever be shut. So John declares that the city doesn't have a temple, a place where people went to seek forgiveness and commune with God. Why? Because everybody has already been forgiven, and God walks among the people in this new heaven and new earth. There's no need for a temple because now the whole place is a temple of the Lord. The picture John paints for us in this final 2 chapters of the Bible is of a restored world defined by fullness, flourishing, and God dwelling with humanity in a beautiful city. Outside this city are those who have yet to accept the life-changing love of Jesus and leave behind their harmful ways. But there is an eternal invitation for them to do just that, to put down the things that are hurting them and their neighbours and come into the new heaven and the new earth. And it's just that thing there of that bit of its gates will never be shut. On no day will its gates ever be shut. The invitation is always there, and it always stays open. There have been, like I say, theologians that have mentioned this before, come up with, I know Christian circles, this is usually called universalism, isn't it?
Yeah, Rob Bell and Steve Chalk, I think, came out with that, and lots of more conservative evangelicals were like, oh my goodness, they're heretics, it's so shocking. But it's not as wild as people think.
So this is one of those weird things where I became a Christian because I didn't want to go to hell. And I was scared into it at the age of 14.
Which is quite a traumatic way to enter into a religion, really, let's be honest.
It was, yes. But I didn't stay because of that.
Yeah.
And when I think about universalism, I love the idea of it, but it doesn't change what I do.
No.
I still want to tell people about Jesus because I still think he's the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
And I still want our boys to have that relationship with him that we have.
Yeah.
But it's something we were talking about before. This view feels more consistent with a completely loving God.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. It just reflects better the Jesus Christ that I see in the Bible and that I know.
Yeah. There's the line, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still this idea that you can come to him. There's also the references to the narrow gate,
mm-hmm.
and you probably know the verse better than I do.
Yeah, sorry, not good at that
So
stuff.
there's that bit Jesus says about entering through the broad gate and entering through the narrow gate, and he says the way to him is narrow gate. But we're always sent to go for that. But the idea that both gates could lead to the same place, just one is a dramatically longer way to get there. It is. I'm not going to say I agree with it. All I'll say is it is a very compelling view and definitely requires further study on my part.
It also, I don't know, just feels fairer as well. Like as an atheist, I feel like I'm a good person, and my atheism, my lack of faith is not just something that I just stumbled into. This is a deliberate reasoned choice that I have made this decision. I don't even think it was a decision. I just think I looked at the evidence. I looked inside myself, and I just came to what I believe for me is the most reasonable response to the information that I have. I'd always like to say if I'm always open to have my mind changed, but I feel like my lack of faith, I'm still a good person. Like, I'm a good mum.
Well,
I'm a good
but
teacher.
you do keep ordering stuff off Temu though, so
that's like minus 10 points.
That's like negative 5,000 points.
I know. I'm a flawed human, but I'd like to think when I die, and if God says, you picked the wrong religion, eternal damnation for you, that just doesn't seem fair, because like I feel aside from just having that wrong belief, I've lived a pretty okay life. I like this idea. I like the idea that God is fair, he is just, and he'd look at me and go, do you know what? You got the completely wrong end of the stick with your religion, but I understand why you made that choice. And the rest of your life you're pretty good. So here you go, like,
yeah, definitely.
Here's a Bible, revise that, and then once you've done, come into heaven. Like, that feels fairer. And also, can I just say as well, like, I don't think if I was a Christian, I don't think I would be happy knowing that my friends who were not Christian, how could I enjoy heaven knowing that they're not there and they're being tormented?
Yeah.
Like,
yes, thank you. I wonder what that's like.
Sorry about that.
Nat, do me a favour. If there is a God and you get there and you meet him face to face, I want to be there for that moment, because the "I told you so" will echo
I will
through
let
the
you
ages.
have that one. The thing is, it doesn't work the other way around, because if I'm right and you're wrong, I would never get that "I told you so." Honestly, Giles, I hope that you get to have that "I told you so." I would love it if you're right and I'm wrong. I'll quite happily take a bit of humble pie for eternal life, thank you very much.
There we go. There's the clip. There's the clip for social media. Atheist says she hopes she's wrong.
I honestly do. I really do.
Speaking as someone, again, who's not even baptised, never mind an atheist, it's like, according to some people, I'm just on a straight, like, I'll get there. St. Peter presses the giant red button that just water slides me straight down to like the 7th layer of hell. I don't know.
Yeah. But if as the Bible claims that God is meant to be completely just and a God of justice, it just doesn't make any sense, does it? That makes no sense. That just because, if you were born in a Muslim country and raised in the Muslim religion, and had no reason to question it and died that way, that God would be like, nope, it's the wrong one, so you're going to go to eternal torment now. That doesn't make any sense, does it? So yeah,
Yeah.
I can't buy that. I'm not entirely sure what I believe is the alternative just yet. I need to do a bit more reading, but
It is crazy how closely that the Irenaeus Hicks kind of theodicy fits with the show, though. Like, even to the point that
totally.
Chidi and Eleanor and Tahani and Jason only get better because at the beginning they're torturing each other.
Yeah.
And like that was Michael's plan from the beginning, that they would well, not that they would get better, but that they would torture each other.
Yeah.
So then realizing partly also when they're figuring out the new system, you have to have a little bit of suffering is a strong word. You had to have a little bit of hardship in order to actually become a good person. You've got to
you've got to be challenged. You've got to be
you've got to have a little bit of grit,
yourself.
otherwise you're not going to get any pearls.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I completely agree.
I have to do this because like I'm such a teacher that I always tell my students, right, now argue against yourself. I think it's fair to say like the parallels between this like Irenaean theodicy and the Good Place, it's not a perfect one-for-one comparison, and the big difference is in the Good Place, the whole point system, it just feels like it's built into the fabric of the universe. There's no like plan, there's no all-powerful design and no God. It's just like the rules of physics. Like even the judge, played brilliantly by Maya Rudolph.
Yes.
I love her in that role.
Yeah.
She isn't the creator of the system. She just kind of oversees it. Like there's in Irenaean theodicy, the whole thing is intentional. It is God's plan. It's his divine plan for humanity. And additionally, Irenaeus and Hick both argue the end goal of the process of soul making is to form a perfect relationship with God. But whereas in the Good Place, because there is no God, the final destination, it's more of like an inner one, a state of fulfillment, completeness, self-realization. There's no connection with a being beyond yourself. So it's the metaphor only gets us so far. The similarities are only so far. But yeah, I mean that's all the theological stuff. I mean I do have I could mention epistemic distance briefly, and then I'm done with my stuff. Briefly. Do you remember what it is? Epistemic distance.
Yeah, epistemic distance, as I understand it, is the concept that if God was here and we could see him and had no doubt whatsoever, then you couldn't really have any faith. You couldn't have any real relationship with God because you're just believing in him because he's there and you know he's real. So
it's
epistemic
kind of like
distance, as
you can't earn any more points if you know that the Good Place is point based.
We go.
Oh my god!
There you go. You made my point for me. So as soon as the four humans knew in series 3 when Michael let slip what's happened, they instantly are barred from the Good Place, because in epistemic distance, part of it as well is also that it's impossible to be good if you every time look up in the sky, could see God. So lovely quote.
Did I define that right?
Yes, you did. Well done.
Can I have some house points, please?
You can have some house points. I'll have to assign you a house, though.
I've been Natalie's philosophy student for the last 20 years, and I still get a kick out of
Well done, baby.
Right.
Well, I would just like to end with one quote from C.S. Lewis, and I'll sign off and then I'll hand it over to somebody else because there's been far too much of me talking. C.S. Lewis, who said, "Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching." And Christians, atheists, all alike, I think that is quite good advice. And I'm done.
See, I had a question that I wanted to sneak in real quick, and because I want to know what the take is, and it was something that occurred to me when it's the episode where Chidi's waking up and we get a flashback of his whole life from being born to 800, lives over 300 years, right? And it's the bit where he's born, obviously, as a baby. I don't know what else he would be born as. But there's a point where I think his mom says, do you like Chidi or do you like the other name?
Yeah.
And he immediately starts crying. He goes, "Oh, I think he's got a stomachache," which is when obviously, I know that it's sort of made in God's image and that kind of idea, but are we set to be how we are from when we're born, right? Because that implies that Chidi was indecisive literally from birth,
the jump,
rather than something else, the way that his life kind of formed after that made him that way. Does that make sense?
So
it's more
you're
like
getting effectively into the nature versus nature.
Yeah, it's more like
nature,
a...
nurture.
Who the F knows? is the answer to this one, I
Like,
think.
Just a fun kind of.
I have a degree in psychology, and the answer is really, really clear with nature versus nurture. There's a bit of this, bit of that. It depends what you're looking at.
I feel like if you went to Bangor University, you've got a degree in psychology, whether you like it or not.
Yes.
Or marine biology.
Yes.
It kind of comes free with your other degree.
For better or for worse. From a sort of from a theological standpoint, is there sort of any evidence that God makes you a certain way?
There are great debates.
I mean, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the whole idea of original sin and that we are born sinful, which our friends, our evangelical friends were shocked to describe that we're not sure we entirely subscribe to.
Yeah.
We shocked them deeply. There's definitely, like, God creates us as we are, but we're also born with free will and choice. So you get to make choices, and that's also going to shape who you are. And the choices of your parents is also going to shape who you are. So, like, this is a whole massive debate. What predestination? Sorry, the debate over that as to whether you're predestined to go to heaven or hell or whatever. I think that kind of also
that
applies
Calvinism
to your...
nonsense.
Yeah, I think that also applies to your character.
I think The Good Place actually does quite a good job of addressing this, because it shows that, like, for the humans, maybe not Chidi, but for the other three, their upbringing and their circumstances and their environment absolutely shaped them into the scumbags that they were. But then their environment could also be the solution. So it's not like they were inherently bad, because if they were, then the environment and all the good love and support they got wouldn't have been able to change them. So I don't know if it's subscribing to, like, a bit of a blank slate kind of philosophy, that we are all just born completely neutral and it's our environment that shapes us. Or was it that we're born good, life makes us not good, and then, like, with the right support, we can go back to that innate goodness that we're born with. I don't know. I think we need to get Michael Schur on the line.
Yeah, now that we've sat here and discussed it, because it was one part of the show that gave me that initial gut thought, but also it was a joke. So maybe I'm ascribing too much importance to a joke, but it was something that I thought would be a fun little kind of
it was a joke that just got out of hand.
Yeah, and electrocute me. So.
Yeah, there's bits in the Bible that talk about the sins of the father being visited on the son, and kind of people being punished for generations.
That's some Old Testament nonsense.
Yeah,
right?
It is some Old Testament stuff. But the way I kind of interpret that is that it's sort of like generational trauma. Like, if your great grandparents or grandparents do something terrible, or something terrible happens to them, that is going to echo down the generations. That is going to continue. The way that having imperfect parents is going to create imperfect children. That's kind of how.
And I think maybe that is a first century, or even going further back, attempt to rationalize
to understand that
bad things happening, and that happening to their children. I don't believe that God works like that.
No, absolutely not. That God doesn't punish, apart from anything else. I don't believe that, and I don't believe that God is punishing children for their parents' mistakes. But that's how I explain those parts of the Bible that say that. I think it's just that is the natural consequence of things continuing down generations by people's bad choices.
So there was only one thing I really wanted to talk about. I mean, we've sort of talked about the faith versus works and the point system, and it's almost like The Good Place is almost like an example of why you can't get into heaven by being a good person. It's just not going to stack up. And there's Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So I think that's John 14 verse 6, and that to me is consistent. And because if God's perfect, you're never going to be able to do anything that's going to impress him. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to be like, oh wow, that thing you did there, that's amazing, come on into heaven, So it makes sense to me that you can only get there through Jesus. But it links into something that bothered me about the show when it first came out. So believe it or not, when it first came out, I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it straight away. Oh, that is to say, I think Natalie bullied me into watching it at some point.
And aren't you glad?
Yeah. But that is to say, I started it, but I didn't even finish the first episode. I watched the point where Eleanor comes into Michael's office, and then as Michael is guiding her around the neighbourhood, I actually turned the show off. It's like, nope, don't want to watch that.
He's only saying this because Natalie's not in the same room as him right now, and he knows that he's safe for a short amount of time.
Can you guess why I turned it off so early?
Did you feel like it was mocking Christianity?
I don't really go in for that because I tend to think a piece of art is a piece of art, and I would get really bored. I'd get really angry if I thought everything was mocking Christianity. It was actually something a bit deeper. I think maybe if you'd asked me at the time, I might have said I was offended by the idea of being a good person gets you into heaven. But I think if I'm honest, there was something deeper at play there. So you know as well as I do that if you're a person of faith, there's an element of doubt in the equation. And I've talked before about how incorporating doubt into your relationship with God is an important part of the process. And that's something else. What I was trying to get my finger on, and I couldn't find an exact name for it, I'm going to call it salvation anxiety. And that's the situation of being a Christian but not actually being sure whether you're going to go to heaven or not, and not being sure that you're not saved or not. And there is a bit of a biblical rationale for this anxiety, and frustratingly it comes straight out of Jesus' mouth. Now I have a sneaking suspicion you're going to know which parable I'm going to be talking to.
Not just yet. I'll probably figure it out quickly, though.
I'll read it out. Matthew 25-31. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and the angels will sit with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people from one another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. And then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or need you clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Now, I've brought this up in the show before. I think I've spoken about it recently, but verse 41 is where it gets a bit spicy. Because then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me." They also will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or sick in prison and did not help you?" He will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." Then they will go away to the eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. So I don't know if I'm overstating this or not, but that might have been possibly one of the most influential Bible verses in the entirety of my life. Now, you could argue that it's effectively like a riff on the golden rule, essentially doing something for someone in need, you do it for Jesus. That kind of links in with that idea of doing stuff for others as you treat others as you want to be treated. But as a teenager, and to some extent as a young adult, there was always this niggling doubt that Jesus might say to me, "Depart from me, for you are cursed." And for the longest time, I had this feeling that I wasn't quite good enough, that maybe there might be a chance that I might not get into heaven. And as I got older, that fear is no longer with me. The more I looked into it, the more assured I've been about my salvation. And it's really been a process where I've just been learning to just trust God. And one of the things that helped with that was verses like Romans 8:38-39. It's your boy Julia, it's your boy St Paul, that fella.
Hey, St Paul in the house.
We should do an episode on St Paul, I feel.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but actually Paul is Saul, Ben is Glory.
Paul is Saul? They're the same guy.
I enjoyed that so much in that last episode.
So he says this line, "For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord." I swear I don't think I heard that Bible verse at all when I was a teenager.
Wow, the church you grew up in really did do a bad job, didn't they?
Yeah, right? Which kind of leads me to what I'm thinking. I had this kind of salvation anxiety from a fairly early age, but I don't think it came out of nowhere. Now, this is one where I'm not actually talking to my atheist co-host here. I'm going to talk to the people who, like me, had some kind of evangelical upbringing. So, hi guys. It's just me talking now. Have you ever been in one of those services where the speaker does an altar call? He's asking people to come up to say the prayer of salvation, and they say something to the effect of, even if you're a Christian and you're not sure if you're really following God or that your walk with God is really strong, if you want to say this prayer tonight, then just say it quietly or something like that. Or were you ever in a small group or a Bible study and the leader was talking about people backsliding or no longer walking with God, and you were really worried that might be you? Does any of that sound familiar?
Some of it.
Yeah.
I think I was quite lucky in the church that I grew up in was not nearly as messed up as yours.
Yeah, evidently.
But yeah, there's definitely been a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Just like, maybe just be 100% sure, just say it again, to be certain.
Just to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not too worried about what any church leaders might think of what I have to say here because, well, I'm reasonably confident none of them actually listen to this podcast. I reckon they just read the subtitles of the episode and think, oh, heretics, not having any of that. But just in case any of them are listening, guys, if you talk to kids this way, if you let them believe that although they've said the prayer of salvation, although they are Christians, that maybe they might not be Christians, that's not going to be helpful. That's not going to make them feel like they've got a secure relationship with Jesus. So you don't ever want to get too complacent with your relationship with God. I think it's clear from what we're seeing in America now, there are people who are claiming to be Christians.
Oh, yeah.
And saying and doing things that are absolutely not Christian at all, that are not Christ-like in the slightest. Those are the people that Jesus is referring to, the ones who are like, well, I love God, but also, yay, guns. It's not the teenagers sitting in the Bible study or in the service who are worried that they're battling with lust and that maybe you're going to kick them into eternal damnation for that. And the thing I was also thinking about is, again, maybe when speakers and church leaders are doing it, maybe they've got good intentions, but also if you can make people feel uncertain about their salvation, that's going to make them question things less. That's going to make them a little bit more anxious, and that's going to make them more inclined to do what you say, because
if you hold hell and eternal damnation over people's heads as a threat, it is quite a good way of controlling them, I would imagine.
It's ruling by fear, essentially, in a bad church rather than persuading with good things.
Yeah. And the amount of times I've heard recently about, like, you know, God is good, but he's harsh. And I'm trying to find the right words they use.
He's kind of wrathful and smitey, and he's going to kill all your enemies, but also he's a real nice guy.
Yeah, it's like, it's so confusing. So I like these new ways of looking at God where there is a consistency where you can go, God is love, and you work everything out from that point.
I think the hard part with the Hicks thing where basically everyone gets into heaven eventually. Universalism, sorry. Is that I think what makes it hard for people is that also includes the gun-toting Christians who thought it was the rapture last week. And it includes Brent. And it includes people who are real shirt balls.
Ashholes.
And ashholes, right?
Yeah.
And the section in season 4 where they're trying to improve Brent is actually quite an important bit, because it's something I've not figured out yet, where it's like, no, yeah, you sometimes helping these people is the right thing to do, and trying to teach them how to be better people is a good thing to do. But it's really, really hard.
I think you've just nailed the thing that makes Christianity stand out, is that whole thing about love your enemies, you know, even when they're absolute benches and absolute dirtbags.
And I think this is where my thinking, like, every now and then I think about the afterlife, as you do. It's one of those things happens when you're a Christian. I believe that God is a God of justice, and just as that means that I don't think he's sending people to eternal damnation, I also don't think there's going to be no consequences for people that have made really bad, cruel choices in life. I think they are going to be faced with that. And I think, if nothing else, being faced with the truth and the reality and the consequences of your behavior and truly understanding that is going to be something of a punishment, I would imagine. Seeing feeling the real impact of your actions.
We see that in the show with like Tahani's mum and dad. Like, they were horrible people and they went through the process, and the first thing they say when they come out is, oh my God, we're so sorry. And like they did clearly face those consequences. And you're right, like it probably was hell for them while they had to work through what bad people they were, but then they come out from the other side. It's just, with universal salvation, a point I often make to my students is like, oh, it sounds lovely and fair, but do you want to share heaven with Hitler? You know?
The thing about that, though, is that, again, if we take the universalism approach, that by the time Hitler has gone through all that refinement and done all that learning, he's not Hitler anymore.
He's just
do you know what I mean?
Time.
He's saying, I've really started experimenting with watercolors again.
Imagine having to face the fact that you exterminated men, women, and children.
Yeah.
And the suffering that you caused. Imagine being genuinely faced and realizing what you have done.
There's a lot of
and
Jeremy
being face to face with that.
Worth of,
of
testing.
Exactly. Yeah. That's going to take a long time.
I also think as well, like the counter argument I often say to that is like, well, if you are in heaven, it's because you have achieved spiritual perfection and therefore you have God's ability to forgive. So you will not feel that hatred and anger.
We do not have time to get into this in a level of depth, but I love the way it ends, and I wanted to end it with the quote from Chidi where he says, picture a wave in the ocean.
Don't.
And you can see it, it's perfect. And then it crashes on the shore and it's gone. But the water is still there. The wave was just a different way for the water to be for a while. The wave returns to the ocean where it came from, where it's supposed to be. And the thing I loved about that, the idea that your afterlife...
We're all weeping.
Yeah. Your afterlife and your consciousness could have an end if you wanted it to. For me, I was comfortable with the idea that I could, when I get to heaven, I'm not going to be straight up who I am now, and 10,000 years later, like in the Amazing Grace thing, where it's like we'll still have as much time to sing his praise as we did when we started. It's like, yes, but I really hope 10,000 years later that the Giles there will be unrecognizable to the Giles here, that you could just find a way to be a part of God and be a part of Jesus, even if you weren't a conscious being again. Because some of the ideas of heaven where they talk about it like it's a revival meeting.
Yeah, like an eternal worship meeting.
First of all, I can't. That is hell.
Sounds like hell.
I could sing of your love forever. I could sing of your love. I could sing of, it would just be too much. So I love the idea that there could be a stopping point if you wanted it.
And sometimes, like, the idea of eternal life is actually quite frightening, of existing eternally and not having a stopping point. It sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
The way I always pictured,
Yeah.
Well, the way I always pictured it would be the idea that you would get to live outside of time.
That's how I think of it. Yeah.
I always see God as a being who can kind of dip into time as and when he needs to.
Yeah.
And just pop back out.
It's not linear like it is here, so it's difficult for us to understand exactly how that would be.
Jeremy, bury me, baby.
Yeah.
Jeremy,
Hanging
bury me,
out
baby. Just
in the dot of the eye.
I could just write an entire book about the dot of the eye there. Okay, all right, we are going to finish it there.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to add a quick thank you to our patrons, James Pittard, Simon Sella, Sarah Cooper, Philip Coleman, Lance Kane, Jonathan Wattis, and one Natalie Minaker. Okay, ladies and gents, if you have been, thank you so much for listening. This is going to be an absolute bumper of an episode. I have no idea how I'm going to edit this, but we really hope you've enjoyed this season, and we hope to see you for our Halloween episode on Dungeons and Dragons. And if you're very good,
No way.
if you're very good, you might even get another special little episode dropping in your feeds before, and I'm not going to say what. You'll just see it. Okay.
Cheeky.
Love you guys.
Julia, have you had a good time?
I have had a really good place time.
Nice. Claire, have you had a good time?
I have. Thanks for letting me crash.
You are so welcome. It's not like I had a choice. Natalie, thank you so much. Have you had a good time?
Holy motherfucking shirt balls, I've had a good time. Had to say it.
That was amazing.
I've had an absolutely fantastic time with three of my favourite humans. Okay, guys. See you soon. Bye.
God in Film is hosted and created by Giles Goff.
That's me.
Mixing and editing by Giles. Our logo was designed by
Julie Walsh.
and our theme tune was composed by
Rick Lee.
Please rate and review.
Please give us 5 stars because that's a nice thing to do.